Okay, considering I don't have any Uber uniques, now we're getting somewhere. Hello, my fellow sorcerers. I don't mean to get you too excited, but your season's about to get a lot better. Because I've been working night and day, theory crafting, build crafting, locked away, not seeing the sun. Which, to be fair, is also just most normal days, too. But the point is, I have been hard at work at making Frozen Orb not just better, but a lot better. Okay, that's underselling it. So the issue with Frozen Orb is it's wonderful for mob clearing. You can fly through pit 80, 90, even 100, cleaving down the actual trash in minutes, but then you get to the boss, and you'll be killing the boss for 3 to 5 working days. Which is an issue, a big issue, and it's an issue that's pushing people away from Frozen Orb. But boss damage. Can it come to Frozen Orb? Can it be solved? Well, I'd like to think that the answer is yes, and that I have done. Check out this example. So on the left is this new Frozen Orb build I'm going to show you today, and on the right is the old one that I showed you last time. This is both regular Duriel. Yeah, it's a bit of a difference, isn't it? So it's a tiny improvement. It's a little bit of an improvement. So I am very happy with this. I have been pushing the pit with it. I'm currently on pit 83. Honestly, damage isn't the issue. It's surviving the ridiculous RNG bullshit of multiple echo mechanics that can one-shot you if you take one step wrong, despite having like 25k health, maximum DR, and capped resistances. But that's a whole other story. And with enough time and patience and pushing, I am very confident that this build would reach mid-90s, and with perfect Uber uniques, could easily cross the 100 threshold. Which is very exciting. The point is, we're actually doing damage to bosses with Frozen Orb without doing anything less to the trash along the way. It's good. If you like Frozen Orb, you are going to like this, and you can run it again, or keep running it if you still are, if it's the way you want to play. And I understand why, because it's so much fun. And seeing so many of you in the comments of last time of like, oh, I'm pushing the pit and I feel like I need to stop playing Frozen Orb because it's just not killing bosses and that's really sad. It got to me and I wanted to solve that. But how have I solved that? Well, a couple things, but mainly I've solved it by giving us a third enchantment slot. And you might be like, whoa, what are you talking about? Obviously, I don't literally have a third enchantment slot. But normally, right, you put yourself the Firebolt enchantment in to get the burning synergy, so you can get yourself your Devouring Blazes and actually do some decent damage with the Paragon Burning Instinct as well. But then we have one enchantment slot used up for burning damage. But it kind of hit me that, wait, Frozen Orb specifically can reliably apply burning without the Firebolt enchant, so we can have our cake and eat it too. Because what does Frozen Orb do? It summons random conjurations, and one of those random conjurations is a Hydra, and one of the things a Hydra does is apply burning damage. And on bosses, you summon enough Hydras consistently that the burning damage is always on, and we only really need the extra burning damage synergy on bosses. So, as we'll get to the skill tree, but as a little spoiler, we just play Summoned Hydra, and then we don't need the Firebolt enchant anymore, which means we can do an entirely second enchant, along with, of course, the Frozen Orb one, which is a lot of power. But what enchant do we do? Well, we'll get to that as we dig into it, but unlocking this little secret has really expanded the scope of Frozen Orb. So without further ado then, let's do this thing. The ST for thee, presently. God, that was such a cool thing to say. 2 points into your firebolt, though thusly it can be anything just to move on to your core, as we've discussed, we are free of this enchantment for once. Over to 5 out of 5 in Frozen Orb, and then enhanced, and over to Greater for that lovely permanent vulnerableness. Grab Devastation, so we can get 3 out of 3 into Dominance for 12% multiplicative more damage. We will always be above 50 mana, so this is essentially 100% up, which is very nice. Over to your defensives, where we just get Flame Shield. The others are fine, but like we can spend 2 points better, and we really just need the pure effect, the immunity, the you can't kill me, and with how much cooldown reduction this build packs now, you're going to be Flame Shielding a lot. Teleport, as always, move very fast, and then we get the DR from the Shimmering, and generally just the best mobility, dodgy, get things done skill in the game. 3 out of 3 into your Glass Cannon for the free damage, we're tanky enough to afford it. 1 into Attunement, so we can reset all of these. And then Ice Armor, taken all the way to Enhanced, and then Shimmering, so it's up as often as possible. This coupled with the Ice Blades cooldown reduction we'll get to, yeah, you are in Ice Armor a lot, and you will find yourself with a lot of barrierage. Like, you're talking 15k barriers easily. It's very, very nice. Over to our Conjuration, where we actually have everything, which is very fun to see. Hydra taken to Summoned for that burning damage. This is our source of it, as discussed. 3 out of 3 in your lucky hit, more Frozen Orbs, more goodness. 1 into Align, so we can 3 out of 3 Mana Shield, and then just 1 out of 3 in Protection, so we technically keep getting barriers, and that's enough. We don't need to commit the extra 2 points. It's tanky as is. Then over to your Ice Blades, where we go to Summon, so we keep getting that cooldown reduction chaining happening, and then finally Lightning Spear all the way to Invoked, so it stuns everything and builds up stagger faster on bosses, though truthfully, this is the least needed one, and technically you could get rid of these 2 points if you wanted to spend them elsewhere. And lastly, the star passive of the entire show here with Frozen Orb, Conjuration Mastery. Stacking damage, movement, and mana regen as we go. This is incredible beyond words that I can say, though I'm going to try. The damage is obviously lovely, but the movement speed, apart from, you know, zipping through, translates to crit with Esu's Heirloom, which you can start seeing some ridiculous levels of crit near 100%, and then the mana regen is why we're just permanently at 100% because it gets wild. And we'll be touching back on this a little bit later once we get to the gear, as there's something very important and admittedly annoying you'll need to do. Over to Mastery, where it's just the Devouring Blaze for that lovely extra crit damage, and then the trio of Frost build is better now in Permafrost, Hoarfrost, and Icy Touch for all that extra deeps. Then the passive, as you might be expecting by this point, is Via's Mastery. Supposedly it's actually bugged, so the damage is working, and from testing it does seem to be, but I don't know if I'm just being placeboed or confirmation biased, but what definitely works is the damage reduction, which by itself is worth it over any of the other options, so we take it. For your enchantments, as you might expect, yes, we do Frozen Orb, and then the replacement for Firebolt is going to be Ice Blades. This is huge, and I will explain why, well, very shortly, but first, that is the skill tree done. So, with Ice Blades as the enchantment, what is the result? What actually have we gained by freeing the Firebolt from here so we can have Ice Blades? Well, obviously, the first thing is more conjurations are active. Because Ice Blades has a cap of 6 blades at once, we want to have all 6 blades for 6 stacks of our most important passive in Conjuration Mastery. In the previous version of the build, you would sit at about 5 stacks of Conjuration Mastery, which was fine, but in this version here, with the Ice Blades enchantment, you will be sitting at 10 stacks on average against a boss, which is 60% multiplicative more damage, which is huge, on top of 120% mana regen, which is infinite mana, and 60% movement speed, which is a hell of a lot of crit. And that is such a big deal. But more than anything, more Ice Blades means more cooldown reduction. So if I start just going crazy into this, summoning them all, you'll see we're at 7 stacks now, and it will just slightly growing. We're touching on the 9, there we hit the 10, we're going to go back to 10, and you see we just kind of sit at 10 stacks of Conjuration Mastery, occasionally spiking above it, but that becomes your standard. But what you're also noticing is just how fast all our cooldowns are coming back because of all the Ice Blades that are going on. It speeds up the build massively, adds more damage from more Ice Blades, adds more damage from more Conjuration Mastery stacks, and generally makes all the difference in the world. Getting to keep our burning synergy from Hydra while adding the cooldown reduction, damage, and Conjuration Mastery stacks from an Ice Blade enchant is the secret sauce here, and I'm so happy with it. It really was a eureka moment. So, let's look at the gear powering this now. You want to have your wand and focus for the attack speed, and you want specifically wand for the lucky hit. Aspect-wise, Frozen Orbit, of course. I really want to find that just final 60% one, but hey, 59 will do. But yeah, this is lots of free extra damage, the extra explosions, we know it by now. We want Storm Swell for the extra vulnerable damage of a barrier. We will always have a barrier, extra always have a barrier with the cooldown reduction we've got going on. And then Conceited, I finally have a max roll, everyone! Yeah! 25% multiplicative, again, permanent barrier. And then lastly, on your ring, we want to be accelerating for 25% more Frozen Orbs. We have infinite mana, so the faster we can cast them, honestly, the best. In fact, I did experiment with going a little bit of Esu's Ferocity and then the Ancient Flame to cast them, but I found that the extra 50% attack speed wasn't worth the damage loss of dropping either Storm Swell or Conceited and actually getting it, especially as losing the key passive in Vias, especially since the damage is seemingly working. Yeah, it just didn't work out that well. However, it did lead me to a different discovery, which you'll be seeing in a later video. But for now, on the defensive side of things, we want to have Ever-Living, as everything will always be vulnerable, and then Concentration. We're constantly spamming out Conjuration skills, so it's just an extra 20% DR. Uniques-wise, then, we want to have Tybalt's Will, you want Esu's Heirloom for all the crit, and the ever-present, ever-faithful Tal Rashes for all of the goodness that it does. 60% multiplicative, god damn. And then, you know, the thing that makes this all possible, Fractured Winterglass, looking lovely there. When it comes to Fractured Winterglass, you need to get one that is at least 45% on the casting Frozen Orb chance, or you're going to have some really steep drop-offs with this build. A high roll on this is imperative, as is a certain bit of tempering that you can see that we'll get to later. But that is that. If you have Uber Uniques, you swap Accelerating for Starless Skies, and then just drop this ring, and then you swap your helmet for Shakos, of course, and then you're all good. I am a little bit overcapped with armor, which is why I don't even have a jewel in here too. Technically, I need to not have percent total armor on both of these from the temper. It's kind of a mix-up and unlucky breaking, so don't worry about that. But generally, your jewels want to be skulls in your armor, and then you can have either your crit damage or your vulnerable damage, which is why I've got one of each. Generally choose whichever one you currently have less of on your stats. So I've got 410% critical damage, so that one is the highest for me over the 318% vulnerable, so I would swap the crit to the vulnerable. But yeah, either of these are good. And then in your armor, generally speaking, health, you want to get as much of it as possible because it also powers your barriers as they're based on your health, and if you want to live against high pit bosses, you need as much as you can get. That said, though, I do have these here for a reason, the plus 100 intelligence. You want to use as many of these as you need to reach your resistance caps. So, for example, here, I'm currently on 68.7, so I would drop one ruby, or when I have finally enough to put a slot into my helmet, I would put one of these in, and then that would put me up to the 70% cap, and that would all be well and good, so you have to kind of balance that. When it comes to Affix affixes, you want to have attack speed, critical strike chance, your ranks of Frozen Orb, and cooldown reduction. They are your core 4. Wherever you can get them, you want to make sure to get them. Past that, intelligence and health, and then extra little damages like vulnerable damage, etc, etc. Defensively, you want to have ideally a mana per second roll. You want to have a single plus armor roll between your helmet and your chest, along with a single % armor temper. That will reach you the armor cap by itself, so 1 armor affix, 1 armor temper, and then you are good. And then the rest of it is, as I said, and again, intelligence always nice to get here. So, talking of temper then, let's do it, because it's a little bit of a bastard for new Frozen Orb. When it comes to your weapons then, there is 2 specifically you're going after. On either your wand or your focus, 1 lot of Frost Augments, chance for Frozen Orb to cast twice. I have that on my wand, and ideally that does get masterworked. On the other one, as you can see, you want to have Elemental Surge for either Poison or Shadow to get the 4th stack of Tal Rashes. That's worth a little bit more damage than doubling up with the chance to cast Frozen Orb twice. When it comes to your offensive, then, this is where you have to be a little bit precise. You want to make sure that you have in your Paragon the Frigid Fate legendary node at 30% multiplicative maxed, and then once you do, you don't need any more cold damage, so what you actually want is close damage to close enemies. Will be standing on top of bosses, throwing Frozen Orbs, then point blank shielding up, and this gets you slightly more bang for your buck. That said, both cold damage and vulnerable damage are still fine. You really can't go wrong between all 3 of them. So here I have close damage on my gloves, I have close damage on my ring, I have cold damage on my focus, and then more close damage on my wand. For your defensives, as I said, you want to have a single % total armor roll on either your chest or your helmet, and then on your other one, honestly, Flame Shield duration is really, really nice. Then, when it comes to utility, what you are after is barrier generation, just to make you as tanky as possible with all the buttons will be spamming, and thus barriers will be getting. Over to mobility, either teleport cooldown or movement speed is fine, not that we have any options for these. And then for resource, we just want resource generation. Now, I do need to mention Masterworking in this one specifically. I generally don't bring this up because, like, it's expensive, and normally on most items, whatever you get the plus 25% on, it's fine, right? Like, I got it on the Frozen Orb chance here, which is ideal, but it's not make or break. However, this build does have a make or break one, and it's on your Fractured Winterglass. You need to make sure that you get a 2 roll on the 1 to 2 Conjuration Mastery, and you need to make sure that the 4 out of 4 25% affix upgrade hits the Conjuration Mastery. Keep resetting till it does that, as it makes the difference between +2 to +3, and 6 ranks of Conjuration Mastery is a huge gain over just 5 ranks, so really go for it if you are keen to properly min-max this out. So before we get on to Paragon, how are you playing this? Honestly, out of nearly every build that I have shown you, I really can't describe probably any better as just press all of your buttons as soon as they're off cooldown all of the time. The Ice Blades and the Lightning Spear for everything that having more conjurations up for us does, more stacks, more Frozen Orbs actually being generated, more stagger and CC keeping you alive, more barriers, the teleport to keep the DR 30% up and to move across through the dungeon, the Ice Armor to stay alive, and then Flame Shield you can time for when you need to be immune, but also you can just press it if things are otherwise calm. So you literally just press every single button while holding down Frozen Orb as soon as it comes up, and you are absolutely good to go. It really is one of the simplest builds to pilot you could ask for, and really there it is. So that leaves, as I said, Paragon, then. I am very chuffed with this one. It's very finely balanced. We've got 7 glyphs, everything we could need, and a whole load of damage. So go with me point for point. Initially from the starting board, head left, grab Resilience, mainly for the maximum life more than anything, as is the extra maximum life nodes we have. I wish I had the spare point for this one, but I just don't. Then we go right up through Elementalist to the glyph slot straight up, which is going to be reinforced. Activate it with the willpower available, get yourself Erudite, and then up through Elemental Balance into the next board, which is the Enchantment Master board. I wish I had the spare points to get Enchantment Master, as it would be very good here, but it's just a big, long commitment that we can't afford. Instead, head right up to the glyph slot where we find Elementalist, get it activated with the Intelligence, get Elemental Balance, and get Erudite. Head right through these all resists up into the next board, which is going to be your Burning Instinct board. Initially straight right and then up for a little grab of Safeguard, the 13% DR, very nice in pit pushing, and then straight down here to the glyph slot where Destruction finds its usual home, get every little bit of Dex that is in range, alongside Cinders and Smoldering Embers. A little 5-point journey up here to get Kindling, it's a nice little damage increase, and then head into the next board, which will be your Frigid Fate board. This is the node you want to have maxed at the 30% multiplicative. That is pretty much done for you by the glyph that we'll be using here. Go left at this Dex, and in fact, actually, I've just noticed an improvement. Wherever you can, you want to choose Intelligence over anything else, both for the resist to make things easier and the extra damage it provides, so that would be a little bit of an improvement there, and I totally set that up earlier to give you a live example. Haha! In any case, head straight down to the glyph slot where we're going to use Tactician, and then activate it with the Dex, and then head right through Weakness all the way over here, grab Guarded, but before we go into the next board, come round and get Frigid Fate. Into the next board, which is going to be your Elemental Summoner. Make sure it's arranged like this, with Conjurer on the top left. Head straight right up through this Dex, through Conjurer, to the glyph slot, where we find Enchanter for the non-physical damage. This non-physical damage from this glyph is the replacement for getting the usual Ruinous and Elementalist, and it does power up this Frigid Fate vote, meaning we don't need as much cold damage on our gear. So we get it, we activate it with the 2 rare nodes, and then head straight up, and also putting it here does give us a little bit of niceness too, as this is the one place we can easily grab the extra 10 intelligence rare node, whereas on the other boards we can't. Just like when we put Tactician here for the 10% multiplicative on the defenses we're spamming, it's quite a nice place because we do get to buff this rare node for an extra 20% vulnerable, and on later boards we can't even afford to get most rare nodes. So it is quite efficiently laid out, if I do say so myself. In any case, head straight up like this, and then into the next board, which is here just to activate another glyph. It's Ceaseless Conduit, arranged so the glyph is at the bottom right. So up we go to it through this Dexterity, the glyph is Exploit, activate it with the Dexterity, and then onwards we go. Nice little damage increase. Yet another board just for the glyph. This time it is your Searing Heat, and have the glyph in the bottom left corner. Head straight down to it, get this one little bit of extra Dex, then down through this Dex, and then head to Flame Feeder for the 10% multiplicative, mainly for the bosses from Hydra, straight through this Dex to finish activating it to this willpower, and then down into our final board, which is your Icefall, arranged like this, so Icefall is close to the gate, and Cryomancy is top right. Head to said Cryomancy, and then finally to Icefall. And there we have it, the full Paragon board laid bare. And that is that, ladies and gentlemen. Frozen Orb tuned up to 11 that lets you do some serious damage. You will see Frozen Orbs popping for 1.5 million, which is wonderful, and while of course it's still slow because Sorcerer damage just is on the lower side this season compared to like Necro and Barb, it's now up there with the best Sorcerer can do, and it can compete with Blizzard Ice Spikes, which is lovely, so you can still play your Frozen Orb. I'm very happy with this, and I hope you guys are too. Let me know what you'd like to see next. Ball Lightning is on the way, as is a few other improved builds, and generally we'll be doing all of the experimentation. For now though, like if you enjoyed this, subscribe, hit the bell for more, consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.